It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Let's talk to the guy that tries to expose the cover-ups. We got Senator Bryan King on the phone. Good morning to you, Bryan.
Hey, good morning, Paul.
So let's talk a little bit about these ethics proposals, the rule changes yesterday. What are your thoughts on all that?
Oh, I mean, some of it, good. Some of it, concerning. See how it plays out and how it's used. I mean, but there was two glaring things that came out for somebody, and that you covered it, and you have these, outlets that do try and expose things down there. And of course, you have the mainstream misleading media down there that doesn't cover it. I mean, but what about going back retroactively? What about who else is doing this? What about, whatever questions? I mean, it's like whatever's happened and has come out is concerning, but yet, there's nothing else. We just need to move forward and everything's great and we're all good people and let's go.
Yeah, they want to act like this isn't some sort of cancer that has spread over a long period of time. To me, it just seems like, and the fact that when they had the press conference and they proposed the rules, and part of the rules are going to be tattling on other members, and of course nobody's been tattling at this point to the Ethics Commission or to the FBI, voluntarily. But yet Senator Hendren says, but I really think our members will step up and do the right thing and tell on each other. And then the next question from the press was, well, are any of you willing to say that Jeremy Hutchinson violated these rules that you're about to put into place? And there was silence. Nobody was willing to stand up and say. And then they even and then he even said that Jeremy Hutchinson, what's been in the news about him, that's not the reason they're even doing these rule changes.
Yeah, well, that's just the craziest thing I've ever heard. And the thing about tattling on other members, who's been out there saying, hey, something's been going on, even going back 3 or 4 years ago. And
you have.
Yeah. Nothing happened. I mean, they just kept ridiculing you. You're crazy. You're mean. That's why we have what we had up there in the GIF, in which all the Medicaid stuff is actually, the GIF stuff is minor compared to what's going on with the Medicaid stuff. And like I said, anybody in the bowl of down there, you're going to make mistakes, screw up some bad judgments, different things like that. But the idea that you have somebody that got $500,000, okay, from one entity out there and didn't disclose it, didn't say anything about it. We already had rules in place that he should have disclosed it. And so I keep saying the same thing. There's not enough laws and rules that it's going to be, it's like the gun laws. When somebody wants to break it, I doubt very much, seriously, any rules or laws are going to stand between $500,000 and the two players that were involved in what has been named in these documents and the plea deal. Mm-hmm. So, you're just, again, trying to make it harder. Now, do you have to do stuff and make it harder for these people or show something? But when you have people down there that just continually act like this is not a problem, we didn't know this was going on. I mean, that's just a complete lie.
And that's my issue with it, and even some of the mainstream media, they were asking questions like, why did it take this long? Why are you just now doing this? And
well, I want to ask them, why did it take them so long? This has all been playing out for years down there. It was easy to see. It went on right in front of everybody. There was no secret about Jeremy Hutchinson and what he was doing and what he was being questioned and what was going on. It was just, it wasn't even an open secret. It was just there.
And yet, the leadership wants to act like this is news to them, and they want to maintain credibility as leaders. And it's just frustrating because we know that that's not the case. And I at least maybe some other media outlets besides me, or besides Conduit News, they're maybe figuring this out, but it's kind of a flash in the pan, and they move on to something else. They're not actually, kind of sticking with this. I mean, when you have the governor's nephew, $500,000 in bribes is what he's accused of by Rusty Cranford. And then we find out, the Gazette reported that Asa gave $2 million to his now Democratic opponent, Jared Henderson, his nonprofit Teach for America, as a result of a bill that Jeremy Hutchinson passed. And so it really kind of seems like it's all one big club down there, and the Democrat-Republican label is just that. It's just a label, nothing more.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't want to tell on one thing. It was just like during the whole Files thing. Well, we need to, pray for Jay Files, which we do, and all of us need prayer. But yet, what about all the victims up there? I mean, what about the taxpayers? What about and you still have these multitude of unanswered questions out there that no one wants to go to. Is give me more details on this $30,000 loan. I've been down there 12 years, and I didn't know lobbyists gave loans. I mean, that's news to me. What about the $80,000 wire transfer? And so you don't have anything. If you look at the amount of news coverage and stories that went on with the, John Woods and the GIF, and then you look at what has been done on everything else with Jeremy Hutchinson, if there hadn't been things come out in the agreement, Jeremy Hutchinson would still be going just as strong as he was.
Yeah. Do you have a comment? We're talking with Senator Bryan King on why, for example, Rusty Cranford or Jeremy Hutchinson has not been charged in Arkansas, and the only information that we really are getting is from this Western District Federal Court in Missouri?
I do not know.
Okay.
I mean, it's just you could go back to Gilbert Baker, you could go back to Michael Lamoureux, and how many times did I talk about how Michael Lamoureux gets a $120,000 consulting fee? There was something being said about that. Was there any call for investigation into that, questioning, anything like that? I think in one of the plea agreements there was things that Cranford that was alleged that he helped get somebody off and get a less prison time for murder. I mean, how much more, if they want to say tattletaling, did they need to have over the last 4 years that came out that all of a sudden this other stuff's going to be new? And, I mean, they handpick, select their committees down there to come up with the results or do what they want to do. I mean, that's just it. They don't pick a broad range or something like that. They pick who they specifically want. And, the reality is this Medicaid budget has grown substantially, and I've always said, not everybody voting down there is voting out of pure reasons to what they think the best citizens of Arkansas. You could sit down there and see it. It just went on. And like I said, Jeremy got a pass, got shielded, got covered the whole time while he was carrying this out. There is nobody in there, if you knew anything at all, knew there wasn't at least some things to be questioned.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
We're talking with Senator Bryan King. Bryan, you mentioned this earlier. I mean, from everything from budget numbers, I mean, you're always on top of things, asking the questions that nobody wants to hear asked, and they certainly don't want to answer it, because the answer, as we know, would reveal a lot of their plans to not be fiscally conservative. That's just on the numbers. And so, I mean, I'm sad that you're not going to be back down there this coming January to be able to ask those tough questions. But I just want to reiterate, not just on the numbers and the budget problems, but on this Medicaid mafia is what we're finding out, on this culture of corruption. You're always down there, and you're always telling everybody what the truth is. I'm just saying you are correct. The history is now showing all of your skepticism and all of your what they would describe as, you're just trying to hold them accountable. And you've been saying this the whole time. and here it all is. I still don't think we're at the bottom of the pit. We don't know who all this is going to ensnare. I personally hope Jeremy Hutchinson takes a plea deal and rolls on somebody else. But I mean, does it feel? I don't know. Do you feel a little vindicated that all of this stuff is now coming out, and you've been saying it the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, not that I wanted to be vindicated, but yeah, absolutely. You don't know how many calls, text message, emails people said, well, you were right, and it was substantial. I mean, like I said, he's accused of taking bribes in a document. Okay, he's going to get his chance to try and get out of it, but yet, if you sat down there, you could see it. It was just as plain as day on how it was being played out and what was going on. The problem was the silence of so many down there. I mean, they just kept seeing, and no matter what keeps coming out that the media can't keep under wraps, it just gets worse and worse, and it sees that it's growing. I mean, like I said, one entity that he received $500,000 in payments over. And then you see the other article that came out that when he was representing one of them, he didn't even show up in court. I mean, that would be like them paying me to be a farmer, okay, and raise you a crop of corn or cattle or something like that. Say, hey, you bought a load of cattle, Paul, and guess what? I'm supposed to deliver on November 30th, and guess what? I don't even show up. I mean, I don't know how this is not. Can you imagine if the same thing was Donald Trump Jr.?
Mm-hmm.
What would they be? I mean, would literally be going spastic on the national level, or if it was Chelsea Clinton?
Yep.
I mean, let's just be fair to both sides. If this was that, you'd have all that down there. It's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And once you allow this Medicaid mafia and all these money angles to keep going out, anytime you try and stop it, change their things, they've got it. I mean, if you spend $100,000, they're going to spend $300,000. You spend $200,000, they're going to spend $600,000. And until the money runs out, and you see the already we're taking in record amounts of tax dollars, record amounts, and virtually have no surplus. We have no extra money for highways. We have no extra money to help fight the crime problem. You have 200 people laid off at UMS. You have a lot of issues out there, but these Medicaid entities, select Medicaid entities and these things are well protected, and Jeremy Hutchinson was shielded, protected, covered up by a multitude of things down there.
Well, I want to know. I have a theory on that. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But does it all go back to 2013 when the state essentially commits itself to Obamacare Medicaid expansion, and you have all this money, that $2 billion that goes to hospitals and Medicaid entities and insurance companies and everything else, and then they're able to tie the portion of that government money back to PACs, and those PACs support politicians. But when you have to have that vote, and we were told at the time, well, we're all Republicans and we're conservatives, but on this one issue of Obamacare, we just believe just this one time we need to give money to insurance companies. Do people like Dismang and Hendren and Asa, do they turn a blind eye to people like John Woods and Jake Files and Jeremy Hutchinson because they desperately need that one vote on that one issue to keep Blue Cross Blue Shield happy and all the healthcare interests? I mean, is that really why they just don't say anything? Because the possibility of a senator having to resign and a new senator who maybe doesn't believe in giving $2 billion to insurance companies is a good thing? I mean, is that why they turn a blind eye, because they need that one vote on this one issue?
Yeah, I think it's bigger. I think this, as somebody that came in 2007, I felt like 2007 and 8 were as clean of sessions or time that I was down there, and then in 9 you could start seeing. I mean, if you look at the Cooper plea deal. If you look at the Wilkins, I mean, the Democrats were in control. This stuff was going on in different avenues, but they were not, as widespread as it is today. But it started growing then, and then as Republicans took over, you see somebody like Cranford, who went from the Democrats, he went to Republicans. I mean, you look at, next thing you know, it's popping out. Gilbert Baker is getting money from Faith and Freedom. Look at what all he's been written about that he's received, and that don't count what we may or may not know more. Then you look at it changed from when Gilbert went out. It then shifted to Michael Lamoureux and Jeremy Hutchinson, and it shifted to John Woods, and then it's possibly shifted to others. And they just kept seeing time after time they could legislate their way into avenues of revenue to take care of the friends. And then once they came up with the plan or whatever it is, they just had to go out and sell it. And once again, so many people swallow it down there. I mean, they just seem to think that somehow there's this honest, clean, everybody, 99% of them down there are good, that kind of thing. And, look at the waste, fraud, and abuse that's knocked a lot of Medicaid people out of millions of dollars that we were able to root out. And then you look at the programs, the different things, the selling of this or that. And once you start that, especially more so in Medicaid, if you don't build a highway out there, what makes people mad and all that, once you set up these Medicaid streams of hundreds of millions, $1 billion, whatever it is, once you set it up, they know you can't get it back out. And that's what's happened. And they're taking care of their friends, and the media nicely just covers it all up for them.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you, Brian. It's a lot bigger than what my hypothesis was. Well,
$500,000 just in one senator and one thing. I mean, look how it's grown from a $30,000 loan to this or that to now one entity, $500,000.
Yeah, and Rusty Cranford, according to the FBI, tried to have a guy murdered. I mean, it's really it's a big deal. The leaps that people are making are certainly exponential.
Yeah, it's going up, and it wouldn't surprise me if things, but I think that there's things that the members need to disclose. I mean, we need to go back the last 5 years and start saying these bills that didn't get passed, that kept getting defeated. Guess what? There's a reason why now they kept getting defeated.
Yeah,
and I think that there's needs to be, and people just need to, say, hey, I've done business with the entity that receives Medicaid. I mean, certainly the bills that I filed and everything would have made Jeremy, expose what he did, or he should have. But Jake files $80,000 wire transfer. There's bills out there that would have forced him to disclose that instead of it coming out in a court document.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Brian, I appreciate your stand, and I hope we can do this again soon, because I think we're going to have more developments on this, and there's going to be more examples of where Bryan King was right all along, and I appreciate your service. Thanks for calling in.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
All righty. Senator Bryan King, everybody. This is Conduit News Radio. We're going to take a break and be back in just a moment.